So President Trump has signed an executive order that will lead to the abolishment of the Department of Education. The left hates this, but I love it. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about President Trump signing an executive order that will lead to the ultimate abolishment of the Department of Education. He cannot outright eliminate it without getting congressional approval, which I think he'll be able to do. But in the meantime, in between time, what he signed will significantly weaken the Department of Education. He already cut, I think, 50% of the jobs. That already happened. So the next step is let's eliminate the Department of Education completely. Now, I want to be clear. I'm talking about the federal Department of Education, because some are going to be like, well, how are the kids going to eat? How are they going to go to school? How are they going to be able to live? Each state has their own departments, plural, of education. You're talking about one for K through 12, one for higher education, colleges, universities. There's also individual county level departments of education in the states that I looked at. In Tennessee, we have one K through 12, college, and each county has their own. So when you're talking about departments of education, we're going to be okay having it be a state-led thing and or a county, city, township-led thing. The federal government may not know what kids in this particular part of the country need specifically. The directives that come from DC may not really work for everyone. The Department of Education does not really do much when it comes to educating your children. The main thing they do that some might be concerned about is that they handle student loans and Pell Grants. What I read is that responsibility will now go to the Department of the Treasury. They'll hand out the monies and the checks from there. Now, you know what I think before we get to some videos? What I think is that there shouldn't be any federal government involvement with student loans, because the more the government gets involved, the more expensive it is. The universities basically get a blank check from the federales. They could charge whatever they want to charge for tuition because they know the federales are going to pay it. And when the feds want to collect the money that you owe them, they have more power to go get it versus a private lender. A private lender cannot seize your tax return or enter your bank account without authority, but the feds can. You see how that goes? That's why they were never going to let go of that debt, because they have so much power to extract it from you. So I say eliminate the feds from the student loan process completely. Now, before I go any further, let's get to a throwback clip here. This is going to be Ronald Reagan back in the year 1980, talking about the very same thing I'm talking about right now. And when he recorded this, it was not that far beyond the creation of the Department of Education. That only happened in the 1970s under Jimmy Carter. This is in 1980. Let's check it out.
I propose, and would have already started, if your hypothesis is correct, a planned and orderly transfer back to the states and local communities of functions the federal government has usurped and which it has proven it is incapable of operating. And one of the first of those would be welfare. One of the second would be in the field of education. I would like to dissolve the $10 billion National Department of Education created by President Carter and turn schools back to the local school districts where we built the greatest public school system the world has ever seen. I think I can make a case that the decline in the quality of public education began when federal aid became federal interference.
Very well said. Again, that was our president, Ronald Reagan, back in the year 1980, 45 years ago. What he said back then still rings true today. Now, here is a CNN clip. They're kind of concerned about DOE going away on the federal level. Let's see what's being said here.
There are conservative, liberal, progressive, agnostic, whatever, parents out there who are like, holy crap, what does this mean? Especially if they have like a special ed kid, or especially if they have a kid with special needs who are poor or whatever. What do you think of that argument? I'm not saying that they're going to be left by the wayside because of this, but do you think that President Trump needs to talk more about that maybe?
Perhaps. I mean, this is day one
right.
of this, right? So let's give this some time to marinate. You've worked for a city. I've worked for a governor. Every state has a Department of Education. They have 3, 4, or 5 of them. So don't worry, bureaucracy is not going away. It's alive and well. As a governors are cheering this, right? Less mandates from Washington, less direction from Washington. Let governors do their jobs. Bring education decisions back to the states, back to the classroom.
What decisions do they are being mandated right now? That like you work for which governor?
Christie, Governor.
So you work for Governor Christie. What governors were told you can't do what you want to do?
Look at the Democrat governor of Hawaii, right?
Okay.
Who actually has the courage to speak up and say this.
Governor Green. Yeah.
Yes, unfunded mandates coming from Washington. You have to do this. They handcuff states. Mandates.
Well, but some of those mandates are you've got to get your reading scores up. Some of those mandates are you've got to make sure your 4th graders and your 8th graders, your scores you've been failing for decades or years, and whatever it is you've been doing isn't working. For the Title I money we're going to give you, you've got to make sure that your poor kids, that you're spending the resources adequately to make sure your poor children are reading on grade level. So it's not, when you talk about these mandates, I think, conservatives have reduced this to bathrooms. Who gets to go to what bathroom and who gets to play what sports? When, again, we are in a national crisis. Our children cannot read. They are behind in math. And we're talking about jobs and careers of the future, and they're behind.
Okay, now, to speak about the so-called poor kids, whatever, poor kids, smart as white kids, shout out to Joe Biden. But the problem with a lot of these kids who can't read is that, number one, in a lot of these school systems, they're not really focused on reading, writing, and arithmetic. They focus on the LGBTQ, LMNP, X, Y, and Z, and some of that might come from the federales. But beyond that, if the parents of these children don't care about education, then generally the kids don't care either. And it doesn't matter what kind of school you send them to, what kind of voucher you give them, they're going to have poorer performance than their classmates because of their home life. It's very simple. Let's keep on going here. This is going to be MS13 DNC.
And with us now to continue our conversation is John King, Chancellor of the State University of New York System, who served as Education Secretary under President Obama. Chancellor, Secretary, thank you very much for being with us this morning. I just want your thoughts on what we're seeing here. At any minute now, the President is going to sign this executive order.
Look, it's very distressing. This is going to be bad for students, bad for families. And at the end of the day, Congress needs to make this decision. The president can't unilaterally end the education department.
Like I said from the beginning, he could sign an executive order that will weaken it, and he did already cut half of the staff. So he's correct that he can't completely eliminate it, but he most certainly can weaken it, and eventually it'll go away.
But what we have seen already with the layoffs is that the department's work is already being undermined.
And so even though you, I guess, can't de facto eliminate a department by cutting its funds to virtually zero and sending all that to the states, that's pretty much the same thing.
That's right. And what it's going to do is undermine the core functions of the department. For example, just last week, the higher education system depends on student financial aid. Just last week, the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, broke for a brief period. Now, they would have been...
For a brief period, what was that, a minute or 2 minutes? Like, these people are so dishonest because they'll say things that are true, but they won't give you the full context. So if someone is viewing this and they're not watching it in good faith, they just want to hate on Trump. If they're viewing this, they're going to think that, oh, these guys are incompetent, they're breaking fast food, look at what they're doing, when it could have just been a simple glitch on the website that wasn't even related to what's happening right now with the department.
Been able to get it fixed more quickly if the people they called were actually still at work, but they were laid off as part of the department's huge cuts. They've cut in half the number of people that work at the department.
On X just the other day, you wrote, quote, tearing down the Department of Education will prevent generations of students from pursuing the American dream. What did you mean by that?
Now, please explain this, because I want to know how the federal Department of Education really helps anyone. I want to hear his explanation.
We have more than 80 million Americans who depend on the Pell Grant program, the student loan program, to access higher education, their path to economic opportunity. For us at SUNY, half of our entering students rely on Pell Grants to go to college. Without the federal government supporting higher education, we're undermining the long-term health of our economy.
You mean
Okay, no, you know what I heard when you said that? What I heard is, hey, our university depends on federal money to stay alive. It's not really about the students, it's about the money that the students generate. Because like I said, the federal government's involvement with student loans has created an environment where the universities, colleges are able to charge whatever they want to for tuition, room, board, whatever, because the feds will pay for it. They couldn't charge as much as they do if it was not federally guaranteed. They have to go, they got to reduce their rates. Some of these guys cannot be getting paid $1 million a year to do nothing. They have to reduce their lifestyle. The elites are now seeing that their cash cow is coming to an end and they don't like it. It's not really about the students. It's about them and their own personal pockets. Now, there's more to this video right here, but I'll link to it in the box. The complaints are what I suspected. It's money. Oh, well, they're destroying the federal Department of Education. We're not going to have our student loan money. We can't charge somebody $100,000 to go get a degree in underwater basket weaving, a loan that the bank would never guarantee. If not for the federales, we can't get that money anymore. We can't sit around and just get paid all this just copious amounts of federal tax money for doing nothing anymore. That's the fear. Although that fear might not even be right, they're so afraid they're coming out and trying to speak up right now so they can prevent it from happening. But look, as I close, I want to say this. Shout out to everyone who understands that the federal Department of Education is not going to help them succeed. If you are an administrator, you're an educator or whatever, and you get paid $1.5 million to sit on your hind parts and do nothing, and you lose that money, oh, well, I'm not going to cry tears for you. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion about Trump dismantling the federal Department of Education? Good idea, bad idea, somewhere in between, you don't really care? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. What do you think about John King Jr., who was just on MS-13 DNC talking about, oh, we're not going to have any money, Pell Grant's going away, all this, that, and the third? If I didn't mention it, he makes $1 million per year as a chancellor of the State University of New York system. Okay, must be nice to have a $15,000 a month living expense stipend. No wonder he is worried about the federal tax money potentially going away. Maybe that's why he's talking like this and it's not really about the students. Whatever your thoughts are on that, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. The grifters are mad at the grifters coming to an end. They're upset. It's not really about the students. They don't really care about the education. If they cared about students, if they cared about their well-being, if they cared about education, then they wouldn't allow a degree such as underwater basket weaving or whatever other kind of useless degree to exist. Why would someone take out a mortgage worth of debt to study that, knowing full well that it's not going to go anywhere? The bank would never approve that loan. The federales will, because, hey, everybody got to go to school, right? Everybody got to, it's a racket, it's a game, and it needs to come to an end. Let the states handle education and kick the feds out of it. Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.